I know it's something we've talked about a little bit here before, but I've never had a mini-sode where we actually just focused on what these terms are. And I think it's time, folks. It's time to go back to the fundamentals. It's time to talk about these important things.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Unfortunately, many real estate professionals, including appraisers, I will throw that out there, use terms interchangeably: price, cost, value. They are similar. They are not the same. Want to remind you that we are sponsored by ANow Software. Just on ANow this morning. Love it. You should as well. You should be using it in your appraisal office. Go to anow.com/coach for more information. One more time, anow.com/coach. Well, folks, I know you know the difference between price, cost, and value, but I'm shocked at how often these things get interchanged. And I know it's something we've talked about a little bit here before, but I've never had a mini-sode where we actually just focused on what these terms are. And I think it's time, folks. It's time to go back to the fundamentals. It's time to talk about these important things. Let's talk first price. Price, in the very basic definition, is the amount of money asked for a product or service. The amount of money asked for a product or service. Notice there is a key term in that phrase, and the key term is asked. It may or may not reflect reality. It may or may not reflect the invisible hand of the market. Let me tell you a story. I recently sold an SUV. My wife and I have had this SUV for a very long time. It's a Dodge Durango. Loved the truck. It's been a great family vehicle, but we've had it for 10 years. And it was time to upgrade or downgrade, as the case may be. We actually went with a smaller SUV, my wife's choice, not mine. It was time to get rid of this. And I started at a certain price. Notice I said the word price. I really thought it was worth that price. I went to Kelley Blue Book. I priced it out. I actually priced it less than Kelley Blue Book indicated. And I advertised in multiple areas, including Facebook, a local Facebook marketplace that I participate in here in Idaho. And I finally ended up selling it, but I ended up taking about 25% less than I had anticipated. Folks, Kelley Blue Book is not reality. Reality is what the person in your area will pay. And it really depends on so many factors. How does this apply to real estate? Well, in appraisal, think about it this way. You often put a list to sale ratio in the appraisal. Why? Well, very simply, you put it in there because there is a difference between listing price and selling price. There's a difference between the price asked and possibly what it actually sells for. Okay? Price, amount of money asked for a product or service. It does not mean that that's what it will actually sell for. All right, let's talk cost. Cost, what you actually pay for a product or service, what you actually pay. Well, Dustin, isn't that what you just said about price? No. Remember, price is the amount of money asked. Okay, it's the price tag. Think of it that way. But the cost is actually what someone will pay. Something may be worth more or less than what you put out in cash or the equivalent, okay? Putting it on that old plastic credit card or what have you. Even the bartering system comes into play here. But what you actually put on the table, what you actually pay for a product or service is indicative of the price. By the way, let me pause here and just remind you that you never actually pay what something is worth. Okay? Let me repeat that. You never actually pay. The cost is actually not value. Let me share with you this. A win-win situation is one in which the cost is less than the value and the exchange is more than what is given. Okay, let me explain it this way. If you have a candy bar and I come up to you and I give you $1 for that candy bar and you willingly give me the candy bar in exchange, if I asked you the question, how much was that candy bar worth? You would have to follow up with, to whom? Let me explain. If you say simply, how much was that candy bar worth? If you answered $1, the answer would be incorrect. That candy bar was worth more than $1 to you. If it was worth just $1, it was not worth the effort that was involved in reaching in your pocket, pulling out your wallet, getting the dollar, and giving it to the person. In other words, the value to you of that candy bar had to be worth more than the effort and the exchange, the monetary exchange that you gave. That was the value to you, and vice versa. If you asked the individual who gave you the candy bar how much the candy bar was worth, and he answered $1, that would be incorrect. Why? Because it's not worth the effort to sell the candy bar unless the dollar is worth at least slightly more than the candy bar itself. So I go back. You never actually pay what something is worth. Let me give you a story as an example. I was recently in Las Vegas with my wife. I don't necessarily love Las Vegas. I go there a lot, though. On this particular trip, it was, oh, by the way, I should mention my wife hates Las Vegas, but I finally convinced her to come with me on this particular trip. And we were out on the Strip. Yeah, we were experiencing Las Vegas life at its best. And it was hot. It was late summer, early fall, and it was hot. It was close to 100 degrees. And as we were walking around, seeing the different sites, we enjoyed ducking into little shops or casinos that had air conditioning. But while we were on the street itself, it was warm. It was very hot. What I wanted was water. That's what I wanted. And as I'm walking down, I hear the street vendor sitting on the side of the road who's got a cooler. So he's got ice in it, it's got water in it, and he says, water, $1? I'm telling you, folks, that water was worth a hell of a lot more than $1 to me. I gladly reached in my pocket, pulled out $2, one for me, one for my wife, and paid the cost of $1, but the value was much more. I want to come back and talk to you about the most important of these three elements, price, cost, and value. When we get back from the break, I want to first remind you that we are sponsored by ANow Software. ANow, of course, is the way that I personally monitor, manage, keep track of everything that goes on in my appraisal office. And I encourage my dream team, my all-star team, my Appraiser Academy, anyone who dares follow me on Facebook, I encourage them to also participate in ANow Software, not because they are a sponsor here, which they are, but because I love ANow Software. They were developed by appraisers for appraisers. And I'm telling you, folks, you will not find a better system out there to keep track of what's going on in your appraisal business. It's ANow Software. Go to anow.com/coach. One more time. It's anow.com/coach. All right, folks, we're back. We're talking today about the difference between price, cost, and value. So critically important that we understand this as appraisers. So critically important. Why? Because, folks, words matter. Terminologies matter. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how words matter. I think that was actually the name of the podcast. Go back and listen to it. But we talked about one of these aspects, and so often I see appraisers even, not just real estate agents, but appraisers sometimes say, I came in below value. My appraisal came in below value. Oh, appraisers, don't say that. And if you hear anybody else say it, correct them. You might have come in below the contract price, the agreed upon contract price in the purchase sale agreement. But if you are an appraiser who cares about your profession and cares about who you are and what you do, you did not come in, quote, below value, unquote. Don't say that. All right, let's talk value. What is value? Folks, value in its very simple form is what is the average well-informed buyer and seller going to mutually agree upon? Okay, what price, what cost, okay, those terms from before the break, what cost, what price will the average well-informed buyer and seller mutually agree upon? In other words, what will the market bear? The value has to be generalized. It cannot be specific. Value is not determined in Idaho from someone coming from Southern California who's used to a much different cost of living and coming to Idaho and buying a $300,000 home and thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what I just paid for this amazing thing, and not understanding the local market. They have to be well informed. I've seen that happen, by the way. I've seen people come from other states where the cost of living is much higher, the cost of real estate is much higher. They come to Idaho and they dish out this money thinking they've got this swinging deal when really if they had just waited and informed themselves a little bit, they could have got an even better deal because they paid way over market value for that particular piece of real estate. Value has to do with the law of substitution. Remember that from your appraising 101 classes? If two things are similar or the same, you're going to gravitate to the lower price. In its most basic form, let me repeat that, law of substitution states that if two things are similar or the same, you're going to gravitate to the lower price. That's just common sense. Okay, think of it this way. You're going to a convenience store, you want a pack of gum. I mean, I'm doing this at the most basic level, right? You go to a convenience store, you want a pack of gum, it's $2.50, but you know across the street it's $1.50. Okay, you're going to go where it's cheaper. It's the same pack of gum, right? Or will you? Again, we're talking about convenience. Is it worth the dollar savings to walk across the street? In other words, it's not just about the dollars and cents. It's also about the time. It's also about the unintended consequences that always come with a purchase. But value, in its most simple version, folks, is the average, what the average well-informed buyer and seller will mutually agree upon in a given marketplace. Folks, it is our sacred responsibility as appraisers to understand the difference between price, cost, and especially value. I've been trying to use the term valuation professional more and more and less appraiser. I don't mind appraiser. There's nothing wrong with appraiser, but I think valuation professional better describes who we are and what we do. Remember that this principle as a valuation professional, this principle or these understandings, these definitions, if you will, let's just state them for what they are. They're definitions. Price, cost, value. They must be understood and followed throughout the process of an appraisal. Many mistakes are made when these terms are used interchangeably. They are similar. They are not the same. Thank you for joining me today, folks. I want to remind you, of course, that we are done. I think by the time this airs, we will be done with the Appraiser Academy Boot Camp. That was the first 12 episodes, and you can get all 12 in the first month that you sign up for the Appraiser Academy. Why? Because you have access to all of our back meeting issues. That means live events that you can see that have been recorded and replayed for you in our Appraiser Academy. Jump on my website, theappraisercoach.com/memberships, and we'll see you soon.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.